All right, welcome everyone. Good afternoon to our webinar, The Journey to Dream Teams with Predictive Analytics, Visualizing Alignment to Drive Peak Performing Teams. We are joined today by Predictive Success CEO and President, David Leahy, MBA. David has 20 years plus of senior management experience at Microsoft Canada. He's a master facilitator, best-selling author, guest lecturer, and has lots of big clients here. He's also a maverick, which we will talk about a little bit later. We're also joined by Martin Foster, VP of Predictive Success. He is the master facilitator as well, has over 24 years of experience in the hospitality industry, and has some clients down there below. He is also a captain, which we will touch on later. So this is our support team at Predictive Success. We have Sydney Kempton, who is our client experience specialist. Myself, I am the client experience marketing associate, and Julie Kane, who is our senior administrator. We will start off today with a video, which is introducing team discovery from the Predictive Index. All right, and then just before we get started, just a couple housekeeping things. So as we move through the webinar today, any comments you might want to share, please pop those in the chat, and any questions you have, please put them in the Q&A section. That's just a little easier to keep track of. All right, over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Hannah, and welcome to everybody who's attending today from across Canada and into Vermont. I wanted to share with you some information and our new strategy. We're really taking the Predictive Index analytics to a new level. The Dream Team concept, you'll be hearing more about it. It's in all of your softwares. I encourage you to play around with it. But it's really about now taking that data and bringing it to the team level. We know, we study the higher performing, most productive teams, is that when they use analytics from hire to inspire, profitability will increase, according to Gartner, as much as 20%. So it's time now to get that HR analytics, the assessment tool or the data out of the HR hands and into the hands of the line managers and supervisors. That does not mean HR does not own it. It just means it's a brave new world of partnering with the analytics, from hiring and onboarding to coaching and development to team building and team creation and transformation of cultures. And that's where we're going with the Predictive Index in the next 1 to 3 years. Next slide, please, Hannah. We call it Moneyball 2.0. Some of our clients have called this equipping for COVID and the challenges that they're finding. A lot of companies have come out of the surviving mode. We're still seeing clients using processes to contain cost. We have a lot of pressures on revenue creation. We have a lot of attention being paid to diversity and risk reduction, and diversity and inclusion is something you must be paying attention to right now. We think a lot about the morale of the remote worker. We think a lot about the mental health of our leaders. And we also are blessed that a lot of our PI training now is covered by government programs. Next slide, please. So what is happening in front of us? We believe that we are in a better place today than we were a year ago. The vaccines are coming slow to some parts of Canada and faster to our friends in the United States. But one thing is consistent: change is going to be here with us. You will not be able to do business the same today as you did in the past to have the same level of success. An interesting mode and note, when I talk to CEOs across the country, profits are up in a lot of cases because they've spent a lot less money on expenses. And so they're thinking about, what do I do with that money? One of the best ways to think about that is that money can be used to grow the business through new training, new ideas, new concepts. So it's a very interesting time for businesses as we go forward into 2021. Next slide, please. Martin.
Thank you, Dave. Well, you're leaving me with my favorite slide of all. I could speak the whole afternoon about this slide. This is what today's companies are facing at. We call this the blocker to success because we all know where we're heading, but we all know where we're standing right now. And especially with all the companies that's going to restart now, we need to make sure that we have high performance people in the right role. And we have studied this, and this is our basic talent optimization system software that will help you decrease the blockers to success of anybody coming working for you guys, and even your actual employee. And when you think about it, there is 4 blockers to these high performers. The first one is the job fit. I think this is something that's pretty stable now in all companies. We need to make sure we have the right body in the right seats. People that don't have the right drives to perform to a job will never be a high performer. They will always go to the minimum requirement. And we don't want this in today's company. We want these high performers. So I think the basic is to have the right person in the right role. But after that this is where sometimes there's disruption from the company, is that we stop there. And there's so much to do after this phase. If you have the right job fit, but the manager is not doing the correct motivation with the employee, you're still going to lose some people. So the manager must be also in line with what the person in that particular job needs to be happy, to be engaged, and to be dedicated to your company. Then you could have the good job fit, you could have the good manager, but still, what about the culture? And this is a brand new system we're going to talk to you about, and Dave's going to talk to you about this. How do you make sure that you have the people, the talent within your organization to bring strategies into results? When you think about it, you guys spend a lot of time on strategy, but do you have the good team to deliver the goods? And this is what the culture is doing. And also the last but not least blocker is the team. Do you have dream team? And this is the topic of today, is how do we build this dream team? So when you think about it, anybody working for you or working for your organization, they all have that 1-2 mentality, and you must provide them with the right job fit, the right manager, the right culture, and the right team. If you're doing so, you will keep them going and being in high performing mode. Next, Anna, Dave. Oh, Dave, you're on mute, Dave.
Yes, thank you, Martin. Too many Zoom calls today. When you think about where you want to go with your company, in most company discussions we have with the top of the house, the CEO, they have a start of a year and they have a business strategy. and they expect certain results at the end of their year, Q1, 2, 3, and 4. What gets in the way is the people part of it. Do they have the right design for the jobs? Do the job designs match where the vision and the strategy of the company? And that software and that data, is it used to hire properly? Is it used to reduce what we call racial bias and bias out there in hiring? And we hear a lot about diversity. And then also the line managers, what are they getting equipped with? Because we know in our research, people lead the leader, not the company. And so when we look at talent optimization, it's the stuff that gets in the way in the middle that we may have used in the past, PI or other assessments just for hiring, but we didn't use them for coaching. We didn't use them for team assembly. We didn't use them for coaching on demand. We didn't use them for conflict resolution, relationship guides. And we've taken that now to the next level where it's a must to be able to execute on your business plan. Next slide, please, Hannah. The path to profits, and again, a lot of us in the past who've had HR backgrounds have had trouble getting money for training or software because we haven't been able to build the business case. Well, in no certain terms, we're there to help you now. We have some ROI maps that can help you create your return on investment for the predictive index models that we create. You will reduce your time to hire. We are predicting in August to September a big rush. It'll be like the roaring 20s on talent. And if you haven't been retaining your talent well through COVID, the flight risk will be substantially increased. So we worry about that. We also worry about lack of diversity and inclusion. You heard me talk about that several times. That's a risk. There are some lawsuits now in Canadian courts and in American courts where companies have hired people, but there's no objective process set in place. We didn't think this would be as big as an issue it is, but certainly there's a risk if you are not hiring properly with objectivity and also promoting with objectivity. There's some legal risk for you. And then leveraging PI in other areas. We had no idea that PI would have helped our clients have higher Glassdoor ratings than previous. I just got off a call with Calix. They're a broadband company in San Jose, California. I was speaking with Michael Weening, their president and CEO, and he was just raving. He's become an advocate of the Predictive Index for several years, but his Glassdoor ratings are higher now. He spent the last 18 months training up all of his supervisors with our new training program for the leaders, and he's just raving about the impact it's had on his image on Glassdoor. Next slide, please. Now, these are some slides that our shared services people can share with you to create internal business cases. But we know that a bad hire has always been expensive, but it can cost us as much as $75,000. This is SHRM data. It can also be something that's going to be seen to drive us into problems hiring. If you have a bad hire, then it's harder to get the backfill. On the next slide, we talk about what we can do when we have the right person in the right job. We've been famous for having success in sales roles over the years. That's one of the areas that's very easy for us. And we do sales audits all the time. Gordon Food Service, which is an American company that does service to restaurants, having tough times now, but hanging in there. Since putting in the PI, they've had a dramatic sales increase of around 13%. And as I said, Michael Weening, who's now president, but when he put the PI in, saw an increase in his sales proficiency of just over 11%. So we know that right rigor, right modeling in roles allows us to be more successful. Next slide, please. 6 months ago, maybe no, 9 months ago now, Veronica Uton came to us. She's a VP of HR at UNICEF, and she had a passionate plea for the market needs a PI diversity and inclusion program. We should do this, we should do this. We took the risk, we believed in it, and we said this is the right thing. So we've developed now a 1 day and a half day training program of how to use analytics to have a more diverse workplace. The results are early market, but we're seeing that early research is showing that companies that have a diversity and inclusion program, a full program with training, are outperforming their competitors in the marketplace, some substantially. So think about that as you're planning your processes for the 2021 year. Do you have a true D&I program? If not, it should be on your radar. It reduces risk and again adds rigor and data to both the hiring and the managing process of the people you have at work. Next slide, please. We should know this. I mean, many of you on this call are clients, but some are new to PI. Is it can take about 45 to 50 days to find that exact hire, even in COVID times. What happens if we cut that down by a third, 2/3? Some of our clients are seeing 2/3. In this case, this client, 67% faster screening time will save you an awful lot of money. We know that that's the case when you again have models set up so that you have the person coming in, it just fits and has a faster time to success. Next slide, please. So for 13 months now, we've been stuck in this COVID world, and clients say to us, people talk to us, hey, how is Predictive Success doing? Well, our bankers were surprised that our sales are up. We're up 8%. We're actually doing very well. Our training is has been sold out now, and virtual has been the way we've gone to deliver it. But something funny happened during COVID, is that the managers came to us and the leaders came to us and said, I need something to help my managers equip themselves to be better at managing remote workers from home. I am worried about their mental health. So voila, we have a new program called Driving Results with People. Clients are coming to us and saying, hey, I need to think about promoting internally. I've got fewer people and I need to understand who's who in the zoo. I need a PI organizational map. Will you do that for us? And so we do. Clients came to us and said, I have conflict in the workplace. We went to them and said, now in the software, there's a special relationship grids, maps that'll help two coworkers, instead of butting heads, have a faster path to success. So we're seeing different uses of PI, deeper uses of PI, outside of just the traditional hiring and selection. And it's been very interesting and exciting for our team because we're getting into some wonderful conversations, but more importantly, our clients are getting new solutions to challenges they're having during this COVID world. Next slide, please. I think I talked about Glassdoor ratings. Certainly, the strategy should be to increase our people brand. We know that when we bring it in, it allows our clients to have higher ratings. Glassdoor is one. Certainly brings in new objectivity, and that's always seen as a bonus to those folks that are looking to possibly join your organization. Next slide, please. So the two-prone process that we've got, we really want to drive home the fact that it is both the BA, the behavioral assessment, and the CA, or the cognitive assessment, that are the two important sources of data. Some of our clients have not used the new cognitive, and that's a miss for me, because it's really cool data to understand the get it factor and how fast people will onboard in new roles. That's an accelerator. That's a talent optimizer. Next slide, please. Source number one, do we really know the talent that is out there in our field, with candidates, in the people that we're interviewing? And let's go to the next slide. We'll talk about this a little bit.
Well, thank you, Dave. Yes, thank you, Dave. So this will bring us to how do we understand people, right? And when you think about it, and this is not our slide, actually, it's a slide that comes from modern psychology, and a lot of companies of today are using this point of sciences. And it's going to lead a little bit to what I just said at the beginning about the performance. Remember these 4 blockers. So how do we predict more of this? Well, we all know about the briefcase, right? I mean, you guys have been hiring, I've been meeting some candidate in the past, and we all do the same. We look at the resume because it's the briefcase. The briefcase will contain the education, the knowledge, the skill, the experience of someone. And of course, the briefcase will move over time, will change over time. If I meet you in 5 years from now, there's a good chance your briefcase will change, right? You will have gained new education, new knowledge, probably lived new experience, and will have obtained new skills. So the briefcase is really important, and we do that a lot in companies of today. I mean, nobody's hiring by not looking at the resume. Then the second point of data that we're looking at is the heart. The values, the passion, the interest, the shared belief of the person that we're meeting. That will normally happen during the interview process, or again, when you talk to any reference they're giving you. You'll know if that person is passionate, you'll know their interests, if you have this shared belief. So, and that also, that point of data will change over time. I mean, in 5 years from now, there's a good chance that all of us here on this call will change. Our values, our passion are evolving, and our interests are changing. So when you think about it, these 2 points of data are very important, but they change over time. Still today, a lot of companies base their decision on the briefcase and the heart. And what happened when we base our decision on these two is that that experience that after 3 months, after 6 months into the job, you're realizing that the person that you saw into an interview, that you saw during the resume, is not really the person you thought it was. During the interview process, the person was saying that it was very sociable, very talkative, likes to work with people. But in the real job, that's not what you see. You see somebody that's really reserved, doesn't go further with the client. Why? Well, you're missing a point of data, and that's the head. That's what we see here. And when you want to understand the whole person, you need the 3 points of information. Yes, you continue to look at the briefcase. Yes, you need to continue to look at the heart. But please, who's behind that mask? Who's behind that person? What drives does that person have? And the only way to do this is, and to make sure you get it, is to use any behavioral and cognitive assessment that companies are providing. And we do provide these to you. And one thing that's very important here, I said the briefcase and the heart are evolving through time, not the head. We're not changing that much over time. So maybe that's a big surprise for you. Who we are, we are more self-conscious of who we are, but deep inside us, our drive, we stay the same. Actually, we received some number in December, and psychology was telling us that we don't change for 5 to 8 years. But even after that, if we change, it's going to be very, very small change. So when you think about it, if you add up the head, the heart, and the briefcase, Anna, we will get what? Yes, high performance. So high performance will lead us to success. And I told you about these high performer before, and we need to look at the 4 blockers. So why is that head so important? So let's go, Hannah. So because we measure the drives. And when you look at this slide here, people have drives, right? And you see there's a arrow, it only goes one way. When you know somebody's drive, you can understand better what they need in their job, in their life, to be motivated, to be engaged. And also that's going to lead us to what? Observable behavior. What you're going to see in the workplace environment. And this is only one way to do that, is to measure these drive. Because if you look at someone, and then we can go to next, Anna. Yeah, if you look at someone behavioral, you're only trying to guess what they are. Remember what I told you about the person you saw in the interview? And you thought that person was very sociable, very talkative, very people-oriented. Yes, that person said so, but maybe not. So you're trying to guess here. And if you do the contrary, Anna, yeah, if you have the drive, then you're not guessing. You're predicting what that person will need, but also what to expect at work. So if you saw in the interview that that person said she was sociable, talkative, and very people-oriented, and the predictive index said so also, you're good to go. Thanks, Anna. Dave, over to you. Just open your mic. Yeah.
Martin, thank you for that. And when we look at the data, and hopefully everybody has tried the survey, and for those of your clients, this is a refresher. But we talk about three different views of the individual. As Martin discussed during the interview, when we first meet someone, they have a mask on. And oftentimes when we study mishires, in my book, From Hire to Inspire, and Hannah, would you be so kind to make a note to send all of the guests today a free copy of my book by ECW Press? Yes, and so we'll get you a copy of it. But I talk about in the book about the research. In the mistakes that you've made, you've hired the self-concept. And that's what shows up during the interview. As Martin said, the core person and who they will be 90 days later will be the top graph. What is interesting for us to know is some people are congruent, where all three graphs are the exact same. Those are very stubborn people, tough to train. But when they fit the model, it's an ideal situation. But when they don't fit the model, that's a terrible situation for us as business leaders. And so we think about all three graphs. We also think about the bottom graph, and not enough of our PI clients have paid enough attention to empathy and the E score. And that little circle at the bottom is very important. You know, I get asked a lot, what's the secret sauce of a leader, a successful leader? It's understanding his or her decision-making style. And if that E score is to the right, that's an objective, logic-based decision maker who probably will need some coaching on empathy and intuition. And if it's to the left, that person will be more intuitive, more subjective. Some of our clients have done some research, and they're scared of people with low E's outside the pattern way to the left. And what we see is those people are very emotional in their decision making. So all of this data now can be really well suited to give to the hiring manager, but also to the line manager to understand who that person is when they hire them. Top graph, the self-concept is what's going on the day they took the survey. And in the bottom graph is what's that person's decision-making style. We think a lot about when you train the managers to be able to read all three of these graphs, that absolutely gives her or him a leg up in retention, in working with remote workers, in conflict resolution. Let's go to the next slide. We'll just do a little review. So just to remind yourself of the four factors and the triangle on the graph, think of it as a teeter-totter of personality. All of us, as Martin said, by the age of 17 or 18, have our personalities developed. What changes is that self-concept all the time. But we know at a certain age, you're either a high level of dominance or you are someone who seeks harmony. We can't make someone into a high dominance, at the age of 30, long-term. Short-term, yes, but not long-term. Extroversion, either some are very sociable, persuasive, or others are more reflective and analytical. Some have a need to move very, very fast with a low C, and some have that consistent, repetitive cadence to them. And then the last trait is the detail. Some need structure and some not so much. I've got some examples on the next slides to show you what we mean by that. Here is, and of course, I'm been around PI for 25 years. In the last 3 years, we brought in emojis. And this takes the PI patterns and puts them into three cool tunnels. The tunnel on the left is the analytical patterns. They've got a gear around them. All of these patterns have a low level of extroversion. They're very analytical. They're very creative in their approach. These people have certain roles that are well suited to them. The pattern in the middle, these people keep the lights on for us. These people are all high detail, high sequence, low analytic or analytical, low B, and are able, I call them the worker bees. These are people in finance, in IT, a lot of doctors actually are in this area. We have the special children at the bottom, the individuals and the scholar are the rarest. We'll talk about them at some point. And then to the right, we have these social profiles. These folks all have the octagon around them. And these folks are a high B, they're persuasive. These people are fast to connect with others, excellent in sales, strong in entrepreneurial pursuits. I wouldn't want them perhaps doing my income tax return, but certain roles are key to them. So as you get comfortable with the software, We have now the PI emojis that are an important part of our process. Next slide. This is a fun one. When I work with, we've got some people from Vermont today, so you'll get giggles on this one. I wish we had Senator Leahy's PI from Vermont, but we don't. And we don't know Mr. Trump, former President Trump's PI, but we do know this was a supreme risk taker. This was a person who's extremely assertive, extremely not detailed, tons of what we call M-score, too much ability to respond to the environment, and that got him into some trouble. But certainly a driving high level of assertiveness and patient type of leader, for right or wrong. We see the new leader now, the new president of the United States, for example, much more coiled in. Still a high level of direction, still independent and assertive, much more toned down, much more focused in decision style. So we see these leader examples. The next slide are two CEOs that are other examples of success. One on the left is a very successful Canadian company who started with 0 and is up to over 300 million, about 450 employees in our hometown of Whitby. Classic leader who was able to morph in the self-concept, very creative leader, high level of assertiveness, not particularly detailed, but he delegates, and with his self-awareness, knows that he needs to delegate and have detailed people around him. One of my friends in Arizona is the account manager for Simon Cowell's companies. Simon has 4 companies. He all uses PI for all 4 of them. His profile that we have permission to share today is very much a big presence, high level of assertiveness, stops at the people door to check in, but you're coming on the journey with him. Great sense of urgency, and a little bit of what we call a cutback D. He will do some detail as long as it advances his vision, mission, and purpose. This is a classic builder profile. This captain profile has been very successful in launching new enterprises. And at the bottom, it's for people that are trained in PI, it's fun to see not a lot of empathy there. His E-score is very objective in his approach, and almost congruent. What you see is what you get from this type of leader. So those are 4 profiles of leaders to share with you. On the next slide is a study we did with Ernst & Young. This is a CPA firm in the United States and in Canada. And they asked us to study the DNA of top entrepreneurs. And let's throw the slide up, Hannah. There's a PI grid in here. This was a study we did of 92 of the finalists. And it's interesting to note, these are startup companies. Again, you see the need for a high level of assertiveness, low C, a real sense of urgency, a little bit of detail, not too much, because the more detail you have, it slows down the velocity of decisions. This is a classic profile of people that are successful in building business units, driving change, proactively engaged in growth. Next slide. When I combine that model with the cognitive model, and the cognitive survey, if you haven't tried it, please bring it into your organizations. But the cognitive is 12-minute survey, 50 questions, and in that cognitive survey, I'm going to be now able to measure the candidate's level of analytic ability, verbal agility, and numerical problem solving. 3 very powerful insights into what that person's going to be like for bringing inside. It's like an SAT test. It goes from 100 to 450 with an average score in North America around 200. So here's a model that was created for a real company. The name's been changed to protect the innocent, but the company came up with a very cool term that I'll share with you. They call it the skinny. And the manager said, give me the skinny on the leader. Well, the skinny is they must have a 270 cog, and they must have the profile on the left, the captain, or one of the 4 emojis at the bottom. What they found is the skinny, when they follow the skinny, they have a higher chance for success in that person in that particular role. They visually know what they're looking for, so it makes the HR team job much easier. They're funneling candidates in to look like a model because that model has had a production level or a success higher than what they want, been successful for them. And that model is a very important part of the talent optimization process. So the cognitive is giving us additional insight to understand the person's ability to gain new information. This is from a company called Salesforce. Salesforce, you may use them, you may know them. So we went in and we studied their top performers. And on the right are all the statistics of their sales that are kind of blurred out for protection. But what we looked at is a high percentage of their top performers, their PI is in the left column in the blue, and their model is in the orange. A high percentage of that successful person maps to the model for that role. And when they have that, we have, again, better conversations, better success rates. And when we don't have it, we see more coaching needed, more intervention. This is what we call a sales model. And we can do this for your sales team. You just ask Hannah to order a sales audit. We run the sales on your sales team, get the PI, create a model, and get that back to you within 7 to 10 days. There's no charge for this. Next model, please. Next page, please, Hannah. So a model coming out of it can look like, not unlike this. So we have 2 successful patterns for this company. This is the cognitive that's been successful, and that's what they're hiring for outside salespeople. They've had a high level of A, high level of B, low level of C, so that impatience, that need for action, and some detail, so they know they can get quota done and get their sales pipeline fit and some detailed stuff done. Next slide, please. So this one comes from a story I like telling. Back in 1999, 2000, I was using the predictive index while I was employed at Microsoft. And we had this very tall person come into the office, and he wanted an interview. And my business partner in HR said, there's something about him that let's run the PI on him. Let's see what his cognitive is. We ran it. At the time, Eugene was was working at Tim Hortons, a true story. He was just come over from Serbia. Serbia was at war. He left because he had to. He was being conscripted in the army. He comes over. We can't validate that he has a PhD or an MBA, but we have this beautiful PI that shows us that this techie is someone who a high level of people skills, was actually a techie who could sell, which is very, very rare. And he also had a 390 cog. We brought him in, we interviewed him, and he became the #1 enterprise strategic consultant. He managed all of Scotiabank globally. As I left Microsoft, he stayed with me and as a friend. And now today, he's country manager for Microsoft back in Serbia. He tells me I never would have been hired if it wasn't for the analytics, because I was new to the country and you couldn't validate my credentials. And so how many other people are there out there that may have perhaps a thick accent or may not be folks that you can validate credentials, but if they fit the model and they have the high cognitive, the risk to bring them in is greatly, greatly reduced. Let's go on to our next slide, please. And when we get into the cognitive, I've talked so much about it. We think about what's the reluctance and who do I give the cognitive to? Well, we would give the cognitive to all people coming into the organization because we want to know how they learn. It's not an IQ test. We would not necessarily give the cognitive to all existing employees because they're already enrolled. And what happens if they score a poor score? There's no upside to that, with the exception of bringing it in for a high potential program. Some companies have done that quite successfully. Think about the cognitive the same way. Let's go forward, Hannah, please. I'm going to pause at this point. Are there any questions about this software, this cognitive survey? All right. So I've seen one out there. They haven't used it. Hannah can show you later. It's built into your PI software. It's a separate tab. Think about this as new data. Google loves it. Google's call center goes to the cognitive first, then the behavioral. but it measures the general ability to gain new knowledge. And that part is like the following slide, Hannah. Slide forward, please. Some of our people will have what we call a shorter runway to knowledge. So they're landing their cognitive at a short takeoff and landing airport. I come in, get the information, and I quickly go on to the next topic. They'll have a higher cog, 275, 300, 300 plus. That's an advantage for us as a hiring manager because they will onboard quickly. Too high a cognitive also can work against us because they have trouble connecting with other employees. Next slide, please. A lower cog is not something that we would be, running away from, but knowing that they will have a longer runway to gain new knowledge. For managers, that means if the manager's cognitive, for example, is 300 and the direct report is a 190, there's going to be potential conflict in message delivery and coaching and gaining new topics and gaining new products. But now with the cognitive, you have a roadmap to understand that. If I have two candidates coming in, the resumes look the same, and someone has a 190 cog and the second person has a 325, from my experience, I'm taking the higher cog 100% of the time, all else being equal. Let's go into the next slide, please. And I'm going to ask my colleague Martin to take the next few slides.
Thank you, Dave. So we're going to continue to look at these performance that we have for actual employee and candidate. And we did the matrix that's pretty simple to use. So I know maybe we can show the matrix here on how we build stronger teams. Yeah, so here we are. I love this because I've seen other metrics out there, $8, $12, $16, very complicated. And sometimes when I ask the CEO, I speak a lot with CEO in province here in Quebec, and most of them don't use them because they say it's too complicated. So they love this plan of 4 boxes, and I'm sure you'll have some people that you're going to see some faces that's going to pop up when we go through this model. Let's start with the one we love, right? The cultural champion. They have higher engagement, higher performance. I mean, they are your superstar. You know them, right? You have faces in your head. So not a lot to say about them, but just to keep them happy, and they are the people you should put a lot of energy keeping engaged and keeping happy and listening to them, so they know they are the future of the company. Let's bring the contrary, the one you don't want at all. We call them the contimidator at Predictive Success. Low engagement, low performance, and I'll give you a trick here. It's pretty easy. Don't put a damn minute on them. There's not a single minute to spend on them. It's a bad hire from the start, right? And don't put the blame on them. Somebody from your company choose them. Somebody offered them a job. They didn't win a job, right? So it just we need a divorce here, right? They need to go their own way. We need to go our own way, and everybody's going to be happy, because I don't want you to spend too much time here, because I want you to spend time on the 2 other boxes that we're going to see. First of all, I want you to put time on the grinders. The grinders, you know them also. They are high performing, but they don't feel engaged to your company or your organization. So there's something missing. And you feel that, yes, they are performing, but if they get an offer for the competitor, or they're looking for a job somewhere else, something is missing, and this is the engagement. So I'll take you back to where we started. These 4 blockers, it has nothing to do with the job fit here. If the person performed, there's a good chance she is in the right chair or he is in the right chair. The problem comes with the 3 other blockers. Do we have a problem with the manager? Do we have a problem with the culture? Or do we have a problem with the team? I would definitely look here with these 3 blockers, because this is where comes low engagement. Manager, the team, or the cultural fit. Maybe that's one of them. And here what you need to do is work on hope. You need to make the grinders aware that there is hope. So if there's a problem with the manager, you are willing to put some time with the manager to get them better at coaching them. And then the grinders will see that. And he's going to say, oh, the company is ready to change. So why don't I do change too? And then he's going to move to the cultural champion. The other group that I want to talk about is the silent killers. I knew them. You know them well too, because they're engaged. So they are totally in the company. They've been there sometimes for a long time, but the performance is not always good, right? It's not where we want this performance to be. So this is very easy. Nothing wrong with the manager, I suspect. Nothing wrong with the culture, I suspect. Nothing wrong with the team, I suspect. Problem is this the right person for the right role? It's probably the job fit. And the way to do this is just to answer a simple question. Is this still the right person for the right role? So you need to have a target for the role. And sometimes the role evolved through time. And maybe that person was the right person 10 years ago, but maybe this person is not the right person anymore. So is this the right person for the role? Yes or no? No. Can you adapt the role? Yes or no? If it's no, can you change that person to another role? Yes or no? So see how it goes? This is very important, because for the silent killers, what you want to create is accepting the performance. They need to appropriate the performance to them, to get the willing to move them to cultural champion. And some people ask me, well, Martin, if they are the right person in the right role, but they're still silent killer, what's happening? I always say the same thing, probably training. And I would go with Dave also. Maybe it's the cog that's the problem. So we see that a lot. So please use this plan. It's easy, and I'm sure you can put all your employees here and work with them on these strategy. And if you want more, we have more data on these silent killers, what to do, grinders, what to do. I tried to give you a quick resume, but we have more data points. So please reach out to us if you know more. So up to you, Dave. Your mic, Dave.
Apologize. What we have not talked a lot about as of yet is the strategy part. And in the new software, there is, and I think, Hannah, we got a small group today. So why don't we go into the software? I know we're not supposed to do this. You get angry when I do that, but let's go in and we'll pull up the Dream Team software. Because in that new software, you're going to see the ability to look at the strategy. Am I stretching my people too far? Do I have the right people in the right quadrants? And so now finally, the software is allowing us to create a strategy document that allows us to map in our people to the strategy. And I've got a case study I'll share with you. And I'll just turn it over to you, just throw up just a demo, a quick demo of the team design. As she's talking through that, a lot of times.
I think, Martin, if you could actually pull that up. I don't know if I don't have any teams to show.
Yeah, give me a second. I'll be able.
Thank you.
Just let me go in English, Dave, and we're ready to go.
As we're talking through this, are your people, your executives, aligned? And a lot of times they are. A lot of times they haven't done a strategy session ever, and they've never mapped it to people. So what we've developed in the last 7 to 9 months is this ability to look at the strategy and then take the people in the strategy, and do we have the right team, and who do we need on the team? So we got some examples. We call it a team discovery. Let me just pull anyone up, Martin, that we have.
Here we are.
Thank you. I encourage you to try this. And if you are new to PI, Well, we've got another gift for you today. You can do one dream team discovery on us. So, maybe it's 5 or 6 executives, maybe it's the finance team. We run the PIs on them, and then we put them into these 4 quadrants. Just move it up a little bit higher, Martin. Thank you. And so some of your team will be innovators and agility style. So, high level of assertiveness, impatient. Some parts of your team will be the opposite, process and precision. As you'll see with this manufacturing map, that was their problem. They had too many people that are high detailed, very much reactive, and they weren't getting the innovation that they needed. Some folks in the team are what we call altruistic, persuasive. They will work a different way. And then some will be results and discipline with maybe not a lot of attention to the people. And all of these people then can be mapped. So if you go over Pascal's PI, Martin, just for fun, we'll just see what that does now. I map them, and I go over the PI, that's just the brown or the blue cursor for his icon for Pascal, and we can get a profile of the team. This is an adapting team. But if I go over any one of the icons, I can get a roadmap to each individual employee about their preferred work style and potential blind spots. This is an invaluable piece of information to equip the line managers with, to help them understand how to work with remote workers, who else I should be bringing onto the team. And this team here, they don't have anyone in the bottom right quadrant. So the advice or the counsel would be, we need someone who is more results oriented in the bottom left-hand corner to this team. They're adapting to everybody, but are they as results oriented as they need to be? And that is now a change opportunity for that specific team. So I encourage you to reach out to Hannah at the end of the presentation today and get a sample of or explore team discovery. It's pretty cool software. Thank you, Martin. Let's go back to our deck now, please, Hannah. And so this manufacturing example that we've got here on slide 46. And when we talk about this one, just advance it again, Hannah, please. Now, here's an example of a company name's been changed to protect the innocent, and they had issues. They came to us, they had 66% turnover. It was a revolving door. The employees were leaving for like $1 more an hour. They had a very poor rating of Glassdoor. There was a lot of friction, and they were losing, a little bit of money each year. When we looked at the PI, it became very clear to us that there was a large gap in the teamwork and employee experience area. And the team was very focused on tight processes and by the book. Well, that's not innovative at all. There was no innovation going on. And the senior leader was very hard driving. JB in red was very hard biting, not a lot of people skills or orientation. So we know that we needed to do something drastic. Let's advance it to the next slide. We ran a strategic profile with them, with their executives of where they wanted to be. Next slide, please. And coming out of that slide, in the top left-hand corner were the new strategic priorities for that organization. Can you just go back, Han? You went a little too fast. There you go. And so the new strategies for the year, this was 2 years ago in our pilot process, was for them to increase engagement and more team cohesion. And so they needed to bring people in that would have those people skills that fit the quadrant. And that was a big part of where they needed to go. Next slide, please. They also knew that if they reassigned people's roles and created an employee first fit, tapped the individual strengths, and they created a new employee engagement book, that they would have a probability of higher levels of success. And we'll go to the next slide. Here we are. And so, end results, they reduced the turnover by 50%. Production, which was interesting for them, increased actually by having people with people skills on the plant floor. That was an increase to their overall production. They reduced the onboarding expenses because they had less turnover. And for their investment, because the talent optimization software They bought it from us, trained with us, and they saw the ROI as 10 times. So the company turned a profit, and now has brought dream teams to other business units. Each year, each business unit is refocusing and looking at the teams, who's who existing, and who do we need to bring in for the future of that team for the priorities that we have strategically. So, excuse me, a good example where you bring in strategy, you look at who's who in the team. Do they fit the strategy? Am I over aligned in one area? Do I have balance? And what is the preferred strategy for my team? Some teams are going to be producing teams, and that's what they'll always be. But some teams want to change from a producing team to a pathfinding team, to an innovation team. You won't know that until you go through the strategy exercise, and we call this team design. So part of the dream team software, done for sales teams, production teams, and so forth. And then as you get the information, I want you to ask yourself, is the team aligned for the strategic activities that we've identified? Sometimes yes, and sometimes not. Next slide, please. If we don't have everybody, aligned properly, what is the expected result? Well, the chances of us hitting our business results are minimalized. And so that's a risk to the business. Next slide, please. So when we get into that situation where we have a match, we see that efficiencies are increased. We see that we have people in all four quadrants, as this example shows us clearly. We have people that will push the growth and innovation. We have people that will protect the company from risk and create that structure to support the growth. We have people that are able to encourage others and really sing that kumbaya of cooperation and have established processes and standards followed with and through people. And we also have those drivers that can be executing on the plan, those project managers that can push things forward and get that decision in motion. But we cannot have a successful company if we're all sitting in one quadrant and no one to challenge us, to optimize us in a way that talent optimization should be properly run. Next slide, please. So, as we get through that, hopefully today opened our eyes to what's possible with dream teams. An output from that is to look at your existing organization chart and turn that into a PI performance map or roadmap. And these are done existing state and then future state. We're happy to do this for you, for our clients. There's no charge. We put in the map. And now I can have a discussion with PI data, proper use being for succession planning, for my people maps, for my team reunification of data, repatriation of the assets, as they call it, with a high level of success. The next two maps, advance it, please, Hannah. And I see we're almost out of time. The next two maps are two examples, successful maps, examples. I think you went one too far, Hannah. Just go back one slide, please. This is a company that the names have been changed to protect the innocent, but this is now the new people map. They have successors downstream. They have job models put in. They have emojis in place, and the managers have been trained to read this. So prior to the president having a meeting, she reminds herself of the PIs of her direct reports. So she knows how to coach and work with them and what to expect from them, what their blind spots are, and what their strengths are. And then downstream, each manager has the same roadmap for their teams. And this is where we believe the next use of analytics needs to be in the hands of that supervisor. Next slide, please. I love this company, Entropy. They started with two guys, ex-pizza franchisee owners, and they wanted to be the biggest t-shirt company in Canada, and they are. They do all the Maple Leaf sports and entertainment. They built their entire company on the PI data. There's Jay at the top, he's a maverick, and then he's got a cascading of data for his team. He knows that he spends money like a drunken sailor, and Nancy, and this is a live case study, so I'm allowed to share with you. Very different, opposite of Jay, protects him from risk, very detailed, follows the rules, and he knows that he needs her on his executive team. So a pretty cool example of a new org chart in the way we design it with PI. As we wrap up today, hopefully today was helpful for you. Next slide, please, Hannah. I want us to think about, are you understanding your leadership style properly? Do your leaders lead from their world to the world of their leaders? Do your leaders know their strongest drives? Do your virtual teams, when was the last time you had a team building event for your virtual teams? In some cases, it's been never, and this COVID's been going on for 18 months. How can I learn my drives, and how can I get my supervisors to learn their drives so that I don't overstretch my virtual teams? So there's many examples of this. PI is a wonderful tool to help you in that journey. And there's many case studies where we've had impact. We'll just advance to the next slide, please, Hannah. I love the work we've done with Doxum, a North American IT company. They've seen substantial reductions by bringing the Dream Team solution. We've already talked about Gordon Food Service. And we'll go to the last slide today before we do final Q&A. And Hannah has, as I've talked about, a special thank you for you guys. And we're really jazzed about where the Dream Team and team design software is going. So there is a 1-hour team session for you. And we're going to be offering you to do a team discovery to 5 PIs for free and a model created. You'll just have to reach out to Hannah or myself or Martin, and that will be created for you. And then one of our associates, wherever you're located, will review it with you. And so hopefully that is a cool offer for you. I hope today was somewhat enlightening for you. Some of you are newer to PI, some have experience with the software. But please think about this as added juice to help everybody as we create this new company coming out of COVID. Hannah, I'll turn it over to you for maybe some closing questions, and then we'll wrap up.
Great. Thank you both so much. I think it was a great session. Martin did just ask in the chat, if you do have any questions, just pop them in there right now. But we do have one, and this can go to either one of you, whoever wants to answer. But how would you handle a situation where the PI data indicates that candidate A should be hired, but the manager responsible for making the hiring decision believes that it should be candidate B based on gut feeling?
Well, I can tackle that one. I mean, science will always win over opinion, and we as human beings have so many bias. And one prime example for that is I'm doing a lot of diagnostic of a management team, and sometimes you end up with 10 people on that management team, and the 10 people on the management then looks like the CEO. So, and I'm sure you realize that this is not the good way to go, right? If you want a management team, you want different strengths, you want other people to protect you from risks, like what we saw at the Entropy. So yeah, I would definitely bring that manager into training with us to understand better how drive will impact a human being, and let him see the science and stop hiring by gut feeling.
I'll echo that, Martin, and I'll just I have a client that says, I went through the same thing because there's skepticism. There's people that are, well, we know what the skeptics are to PI. The skeptics are generally a high level of assertiveness, low level of extroversion, and high detail. But golden gut plus science equals better outcomes. One of the things that I think most managers want, hopefully, is to make the right decision for that employee as well as the company. When you bring in data and you've trained them, as Martin says, to understand what they're looking for, it makes their job easier, because most managers want their job to get easier versus more difficult. And if we can predict a bad hire before them coming into the organization, that's a great thing. We work a lot of family-owned businesses, and here's a good example. the first pioneer that builds a family business oftentimes is a high level assertive, low level of patience, so high A, low C. And what does she do? She turns it over to her son or daughter. Well, what happens if the son or daughter is the complete opposite? Are you going to expect the same level of growth with the new person coming into the organization? It's just not going to happen. And so those are difficult discussions. Talk about hiring a friend. How about having not to hire your son or daughter, because for that role, it would be not fair to that person. So great question. But what we really want to think about with analytics is we really want to put the employee or the candidate in the right position to allow that candidate to be the best version of himself or herself at work for us. And hopefully that manager who made that assertion would agree. If not, maybe it's time to change the manager. Sorry, Hannah, next to you.
No, we just have one more regarding I think we've gotten this one a few times actually in the past. But can you two maybe just touch on with the team discovery tool, is there a good team type or is there a good strategy? I know sometimes there's confusion on if something's right or wrong, but maybe one of you could touch on that.
Well, I'm going to say, Anna, it's pretty simple. If we go back to our first slide, one of the first slides we saw today, depending on the strategy you have and different company, different strategy, there is no one dream team. I mean, it's all going to depend on where you want to build your strategy to results. And remember, without talent optimization, without dream team, you're missing a part. You're building that great strategy plan, but you're not even sure you have the team to bring that strategy to the results that you want. So the answer is no.
Yeah, and there's so many examples of Elon Musk, who like him or not, is a very dynamic and innovative producing team. If all of his people, were in the bottom left quadrants, he would not have the innovation he would have today. So companies go through different stages, but that's something that the company itself will have different teams for different purposes. The finance team will probably look quite a bit different than the sales team in most organizations. You would expect that, but sometimes we see that not happening. Fast-growing companies will have different strategies versus companies that are maybe up for sale. The best thing about this exercise is your managers will have some time to finally define what their strategy is and a people strategy. And they may have never done that before, but the exercise leads it through. And it comes with a 3-hour exercise that we lead with you, which has really led to some wonderful discussions that have helped companies position themselves for the future. Great question.
Great. Well, I don't see any more in the chat, so we could leave it at that. But thank you both for your time today. And for all our attendees, you can be looking out for a follow-up email from me. I will be reaching out this afternoon. And thank you all for attending.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, folks. A lot of fun.